Hello, in this video we're going to cover the basic node properties that Cocos Studio provides. So to demonstrate that, let's just drag on an object. So it's going to drag on the sprite, for example, and actually just zoom in a little bit. So we've got our sprite right here, and there are a few different properties. They're all right here on the right hand side. First of all, you have base, and you have a little thumbnail to indicate what sort of object you have, the object name or the object type that you selected. Then you can input a name. This doesn't have to be unique, and this is a great way of referencing it in code as well. Then again, just telling you the type again. Then we got position and size. We got the anchor point. You see this little white dot right here? That is the anchor point, and the anchor point is used in so many different things. So let me just demonstrate how important the anchor point is. So it ranges between 0 and 1. It can go higher than 0, higher than 1 and lower than 0, but 0 and 1 makes it actually on the actual object itself. So if I were to put 3 and put -2, as you can see, it's no longer on the object, but you can still set it that way. So if I were to set the position, because the canvas size is 960 by 640, doing some basic maths, the center of the canvas is 480 by 320. And if I zoom out a little bit, you might be thinking that the object isn't in the center, but it is, because you don't position it according to the object, but according to the anchor point itself. So if I were to put the anchor point back to 0.5, 0.5, put this to 480 by 320, as you can see, it's now in the center. So that's something to bear in mind when you position stuff. It's relative to your anchor point. So let's just scroll down, see what other properties we have. We've got some size properties. These are just grayed out depending on what object you've got and what state it's in. You'll be able to set the size property. They just got some pinning and sizing. This is very similar to stuff like Visual Studio. So you can just have it always anchored to the bottom left, top right, center, that sort of stuff. And you've got a little preview window right here. Below that, we got general. And then the first property is visible. If you click that, the object is no longer visible. So to select it, I'm going to get it from here. And if I click it again, it is now visible. You can set a tag, and this is another great way of referencing it in code. You can also scale your object. So if I were to put 200 by 200, as you can see, it's scaled it. But something else I'm going to show you is it's relative to the anchor point. Literally, most things here are relative to the anchor point. So if I would put 3 minus 2 again, as you can see, the anchor point is down here. And if I were to, let's say if I want to size that to 300 by 300, as you can see, it started moving around because it's relative to the anchor point. Before, it wasn't moving around because the anchor point was in the center of the object. So what I'm going to do is go back and change this to 0.5, 0.5. Let's just demonstrate the rotation method. I'm going to put, I don't know, 87 degrees. As you can see, it's rotated around the center. And I think you might be able to guess what would happen if I change the anchor point. So it's no longer in the center. So let's do 3 minus 2. And I'm going to change the rotation to 120. It's rotated around the anchor point, not its center. So it's going something like this. And that's the same for the skew method. So let's just change this to 0.5, 0.5. Scroll down, and I'm going to change the skew. Actually, I'm going to put the rotation back to 0 first. Skew is the best way you can think of it is it's like getting the corners and just pulling them, so it's stretching the object. So if I just change this to 45, as you can see, it's like literally got these two corners and pulled them accordingly. And that's the same for something like this as well. But again, as you may know, or as you may have guessed, if I change this to, let's say, 3 minus 2, I'm just using 3 and minus 2 as an example. Obviously, you can choose whatever you want. And I'm going to change the skew to 45. As you can see, it moved because the anchor point, where's the anchor point? The anchor point's down here now. So let's just zoom out a bit, change this to 90, and as you can see, it's moving all over the place. So just be careful if stuff like this happens. Chances are your anchor point isn't set to the center of the object. So I'm just gonna fix up the skew to 0, 0. Reposition it so it's in the center of the screen. So 480 by 320. Scroll down. One thing I forgot to show you was the scale method. I showed you that, but there's this little button right here, and if I click it, it basically joins together, and that keeps the ratio the same. So if I were to put this to 500, I don't need to change this as well, because it'll just lock in the same ratio. Likewise, if I unlock it and I put this to 250, so it's a ratio of 2 to 1, and I lock this, and imagine if I want to put this as 200, a 2 to 1 ratio makes the vertical at 100%, as you can see right there. So I'm just going to leave that as it is. So I can change the opacity as well. So as you can see, you can change the opacity. There's a little box here where you can just input a number instead if you know exactly what you want instead of using the slider. So bear in mind that you need an integer, because if I were to put 56.7, it rounds it up. If I were to put 56.4, it rounds it down. So just basic maths rounding. And we got a little color as well. Let's set the opacity back to 100, and I can just click the drop down, and I can input a hexadecimal value if I know a particular one. This is great for web developers. And the hue, saturation value, red, green and blue values, or I can just use this little nifty color picker. So I want a greenish color, quite dark. Click OK, and as you can see, it's basically got a greenish tint on it. That's the new color. And if you want to go back to the original colors of the object, you just set it to white, which is all F, and click OK, and you're all good to go. The next property is flip, so I can flip it horizontally, flip it vertically as well, and you can also flip them at the same time. So that's pretty cool. A great use for this is if you're creating a game and you have something, let's say, that can move left and right, instead of creating multiple images, which not only increase the processing power that you need, the memory to store them, plus also the storage space on your device, especially on mobile devices, this sort of stuff is crucial. You can just flip it, and for a lot of objects that will be more than sufficient. If I scroll down, we get to a feature section. The feature section is specific to the object that you're using. So I've got an image resource right here, and I could drag on or right click and add an image to it. We're gonna have a separate tutorial for the different objects and the different features, so I'm not really gonna go into that too much here. And again, we'll discuss some more features which are just relative to this particular object, which is the sprite object. Then if we jump over to the advanced tab, we got like a little frame event and some user data. Again, this is just some stuff you can use in code, but for the most part you'll be dealing with the basic properties. So that is it for the properties of a object. If you have any questions, feel free to post them on sonarlearning.co.uk/questions.php. You don't need to remember that, there'll be a link in the description. And as usual, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day.